Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver, and also by the people who support me on Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. Please continue to support me because really this is the only way I can do anything. And today I'm very, very excited to have a returning guest who has moved up in the world significantly since the last time we chatted. My dear friend and colleague on the CAG, Rachel Weeks. Hey, Rachel, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you, Shivam?
I'm doing lovely. I mean, as long as we're not here to rule zero our chat, we should be fine.
It's always a hot button topic, the Rule Zero conversation.
People, you can tell we're between preview seasons when people just start getting antsy about rules minutia. And it's like, okay, somebody show them a new card, please, because this is just getting old.
Dear God. Bloomberg couldn't come soon enough.
Right?
I mean, I know Modern Horizons is coming, but...
Well, by the time this show comes out, we may well be between Modern Horizons and Bloomberg. I don't know.
There you go.
I've got quite a buffer. Ahead. But one of the other things that's happened since the last time we chatted, because the last time you were on, we had like a nice, interesting discussion about your history as a stand-up and moving from Chicago to LA and everything. Turns out you're literally one of the hosts of the literal biggest organization of Commander influence there is, Game Nights and Command Zone. And,
it was not long after we recorded.
No, it was like a month or two after.
Yeah, it's big changes happened very, very fast.
Hell yeah, they did.
It's so funny because, you know, when you move out, like when I moved out to Los Angeles, I was a huge Commander fan, and I was only like 2 years into it. And I remember driving to LA and being like, wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if I got to be on Game Nights? And I would as I was driving in the car, I was doing like intros for my decks for Game Nights.
Right.
And now it's my job. And I've been on like
a million of them.
Many Game Nights, multiple Game Nights lives.
It's the coolest thing.
It's absurd.
Look, as a long time fan of the Command Zone, and of Josh and Jimmy in general, and of Game Nights and everything, I am so both deeply, deeply envious of you and also just so thrilled that my friend is living the dream. It's so dream. Rad.
It's so crazy. My job became what I was doing when I wasn't doing my job.
Right? Isn't that the
coolest
job? Because, like, look, when I first met you and when Sheldon first introduced you to me or like you to us in the CAG and everything, it was basically like, hey, this is the most brilliant person you don't know in Commander.
Yeah.
And like, it has proven true. Your ideas are, not only are they in line with mine, which obviously makes me very feel better about myself, but also you have such a good read on the format and an understanding of the way people play and think. And like, with all due love for Josh and Jimmy, their style of play is very fast and flashy and hits a power band that is maybe higher than a lot of people are. So like when you came on and started promulgating your philosophy through the largest microphone we have, it's awesome. I love it because it's amplifying. Look, everything you did with Dan on your old podcast was like pure Shivam Commander philosophy distilled in a way that's much better than I am at doing it. And I was like, damn, this is awesome. So seeing you get the audience is fantastic. I love it. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. I mean, that means a lot. It's having the microphone that I do, especially at, you know, the experience level, there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes with picking up a microphone that's been warmed by two guys that have been doing this for literally a decade. It's 10 years in July.
Yeah.
So it's big
Jeez.
shoes to fill, and I'm doing my best. We're learning a lot over there, and I'm very proud to be where I am. But it's
So
a lot of work.
I'm very curious, like, because I want to talk about what it's like to have jumped into, and because like Josh and Jimmy, they run a very professional organization
Oh yeah.
compared to a lot of us bedroom podcasters, and I'm just very curious if you can talk about what it was like to move from doing this kind of just on your own for funsies into what it's like an actual, like, there's a company, there's people, there's
Mhm.
editors, there's dudes holding booms and lights and everything. Like,
Yeah.
what was that transition like for you?
I mean,
Like,
they did a
how
very
did they
good job.
approach you?
Oh God. Well, I was approached by Josh actually years ago. And I was in a position where I was like, look, I'm just getting settled. The commander sphere was very young, and I wasn't ready to sort of
Oh,
abandon everything I had just started. I was in a weird spot. I had just gotten a new job and just started a new podcast, and Josh reached out. Um, and then a couple years later, when I was a little bit more settled and had a better idea of what I wanted, uh, Josh reached out again, and
this time you were
I,
in a much more
I
settled
was,
season place.
yeah, I knew I was a lot more confident about my position in the community, and I was a lot more. Um, I had a better idea of what I wanted to do long term.
Mm,
Um, and it was just a better time for me to transition to hosting the command zone. I mean, we went through like an audition process. Basically, I did a
mm,
couple of guest episodes
mm.
where I did the research for it was Dominaria um
United.
United. Yeah, I always get it mixed up with Dominaria Remastered because they were so close together.
Right.
Um, uh, so I did a bunch of the research for all of the Dominaria United episodes and was a guest host on those, and um, it went well. And I ended up getting the full time job pretty soon after that.
So
Um,
cool.
it was wild. Talk about pressure. I mean, luckily it's stuff that I'm already doing. Like
Right.
they asked me to do stuff that I was naturally very inclined to, which is just take a commander and find 10 cards that work really well with it. It's like I
Right.
can do that all
Yeah.
day.
Right.
Um, but of course they have a much more formal process. We go with much more fleshed out outlines than I'd ever worked with before.
Yeah. There's not a lot of
Uh,
improv on that set.
I mean, it just so much is researched where it's just like you've like 10 cards written down and you don't use all the cards that you have written down. You have to have all of the cards with, like, we do our best to have the version, and if it doesn't have an updated errata text, to like get the screenshot of the errata text so
Hmm.
that everything is communicated as well as possible. But I don't come from a rules background. I don't like I haven't even been playing Magic that long. I started in like 2017. So there's still a lot that slips through the cracks, but I'm learning a lot.
That's what I love about, for instance, you and Olivia, is that like you guys basically are very, very green comparatively, and yet it's just been like monumental the kind of impact you've had on the
Mhm.
community, which I love. I think it's rad, and but it's
Yeah, we're
wild.
commander players through and through, right? Like
Yeah,
I started playing Magic through multiplayer, and
right.
my first like official format was commander.
Yeah, and like Olivia started with literal Commander two-headed giant 8-person game. So, and I'm like, that's not even Magic
I know,
anymore. I don't know
she's
what
still
you're
playing.
doing.
What?
And now she runs a show. So what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Nobody could deserve it more, I swear.
Mm.
But like, I, it's why. I mean, I'm just thinking about the kind of pressure it must be to flip on a camera and know that a literal million people are going to watch your audition, right?
It's I mean, it was just so much fun. Like I have a lot of performance background,
Yeah,
and
that
I
helps a lot.
honestly, it wasn't the scariest thing about it wasn't just talking, because I had multiple years of podcasts,
Yeah,
and like I'm I'm a good talker. The scariest thing about that show for me is the camera,
Mm.
because it's not like, your little.
You don't get any feedback.
Well, it's like a film camera, right? It's a big lens, dark hole
Staring right at you.
camera. And so that took a lot of getting used to. I'm still not used to it. I catch myself, I don't look in the right place a lot of the time. So sometimes I'll be looking right off the camera. Sometimes I'll be looking sort of right in front of my guest host. So I'll look like I'm staring off into space.
Oh god.
And it's
Your
like,
directors must get so annoyed.
I mean, there's nobody there to be like, hello. So I catch it in recording, and I have to, like, I'm trying to teach myself to have better, professional hosting presence, because that's, there's nobody there to teach you that,
Right.
really, other than, like Josh and Jimmy do such a great job of it, but it's all observational.
Yeah, but they also do a great job of it because they've had 20 years of training doing this,
Yeah.
right? Like Josh, in conversation with Josh when I first got to know him, we were both like trailer editors, and learning from him, like I was just like, I was working at Sony PlayStation. I'm doing scrub video game trailers.
Mhm.
He's doing Star Wars,
Yeah,
right?
it's crazy
So
stuff.
just
Yeah.
any conversation with him was like sitting at the feet of a master and just being inundated in like knowledge. I'm like, this is the greatest lesson I'm getting from anybody, and we're just having coffee. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's the best at that.
So, like, can you describe us? Like, can you talk us through what it's like to set up an episode of Game Nights or something like that? Like, how do you guys do that?
So I don't have a ton to do with Game Nights.
Not Game Nights. I mean Command Zone.
Yeah, I mean, I build the decks for Game Nights, but all the camera stuff happens and I show up, which is great. Perfect for me. But for a podcast episode,
Yeah, the podcast.
the process starts with me. I do a ton of, so I usually come up with the ideas. I've got a long list of.
Are you like the main thrust of the podcast now?
Oh yes, yeah. Most of the ideas come from me. There's some that come from Jimmy. All of them sort of get run through the guest host most of the time. So whether it's Josh or Jimmy or another member of the staff, because it's sort of a revolving door right now.
Yeah, the last one I saw was with you with Kibler of all people.
Yeah, it was great.
That was fun.
It was so. It's such a pleasure to sit down and talk about Magic with Kibler.
He's
wild.
so smart.
He's so smart.
It's not
ridiculous.
fair. It's really not fair.
Every time he says something that I agree with, I'm like, I'm the smartest in the world. I must be. So I do a lot of the like idea formulating, and then I work on the episode with whoever I'm hosting with. And we do a ton of research, and we write together a very detailed outline. And then try and do some fact checking as much as we can. We have people in the office that we don't have any judges that are like on staff, but we have a couple of people that are very confident rules experts. So we run it by them. We double cross check it with other people, and try and be as accurate as possible. Somebody referred to the show as journalism the other day, as magic journalism. And it's honestly, them saying that was a really important thing for me to hear, because it takes it to another level of responsibility. And, we're going to make rules mistakes, and we're going to, like, we had one recently that we didn't catch in a rules episode. That's very disappointing. It's something that we're very careful about. And when we can't catch it in the edit, it's a shame, because it means it goes out and like false information is
300,000 people are going to be like, hey,
it's not that, or they'll think the wrong thing because we said the wrong thing. And even if it's an offhanded remark that we can leave a comment and try and correct ourselves as much as possible, you can't unrelease the episode. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with doing that research and doing a lot of fact checking. Yeah, like there's a series of, there's this responsibility that comes along with having a megaphone of that caliber, because for decades we called it the command zone effect, right? Like Josh or Jimmy would name a card, and suddenly that card would be like infinite dollars, or everybody on the street in random corners would be like, yo, I don't know if you know this, but that card is garbage because Josh and Jimmy just said you should be using this card instead. I'm like, hey, I know Josh and Jimmy. I know what they said. It's fine.
you can still play, this
Mhm.
3 mana rock. It's fine. Nobody's going to take your deck away.
Yeah.
But like, there's a power in like this platform in being able to
Mhm.
disseminate information, and there's so many people out there who will take it as gospel.
Mhm.
So you have like a responsibility to make sure you're like saying the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And
And before it was always, it's always my opinion. It's always a thing
right,
that I found from playing, but when when you speak it into the microphone, it's a thing that people say back to you, or it's a thing that people will adapt into their gameplay. And when you're wrong about something, or even when you're right about something at the time and then that thing changes because our game is ever evolving, our format is
right.
constantly evolving. um you've said stuff in the past that people are taking as gospel. So
Mhm.
it's I'm learning a lot, and I certainly feel that pressure. um it's tough when you make an episode that you're like, well, I think we could have done this section better. I think like I could have been more articulate in that section. um
Mm,
because I'm not going to get it perfectly. I've been doing
right?
the show for a year. um uh and I'm very invested and I learn a lot and I do a lot of research, but I'm learning along with everybody else. So it's definitely, I think with me taking over, there's been not taking over, but taking the reins primarily of the show.
It's the same
um
thing.
is there's definitely a tonal shift. Like I have
Yeah,
a different
100%.
level
There was a
of
tonal shift.
I
Josh and
have
Jimmy
a
weren't talking about lasagna to your magic.
Yeah, I mean, I have a tough time speaking with the same authority that I feel like they always did, and I'm doing my best, but it's like the thing about that I believe about Commander is that like the only authority about your Commander deck is you.
Right?
So it's I have a harder time saying this card is bad or this card is unplayable. I want to talk about the opportunities for a card to be played rather than
This
like this card is strictly better or strictly
Yeah,
worse.
that is exactly why I prefer your voice there,
Mm,
because that's my thinking as well, which is like it's because I was talking to somebody on who was trying to nail me down on like, well, is if my Heliod deck is a 7 or my Heliod Sax deck is a 7, should I be playing against these people? Yes or no, Mr. Rules Guy. And I'm like,
mhm,
look, dude, the only person who is competent and capable of answering that question are the other 3 people in your pod.
mhm,
Like, whatever deck you bring down, a 7 is a meaningless number that
mhm,
has nebulous implications. 7 compared to what? 7 out of 3,000? 7 out of 5? Who knows? The point is, the only people who matter are the 3 people that you're sitting down with, the 4 people
mhm,
that you're sitting down with in your pod. Those are the people who you are going to spend the next hour and a half to 2 hours with. They're the only ones who matter. If they're
mhm,
looking at your deck and saying, yo, that deck is maybe not the speed we're looking for, then it doesn't matter if your 7's a 7. It's now
mhm,
just not in the discussion,
mhm,
right? And it took me a long time to get to that idea of like, we can't make a universal power band or like idea of what is and isn't okay in Commander, what's strictly better, strictly worse. No, that is meaningless because the context is more important than all that, which is what are
mhm.
the people you're playing with playing, and are you in the conversation with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do think a big thing that people come to the command zone for is to be a better deck builder and be a more
Yes.
confident player and to learn how to be a more well-rounded magic player. So it's an interesting balance between giving you the tools to
Yes.
feel confident in what you're building, and when you build something feel relatively confident that when you take it to a table it's going to do what you want it to do.
Right.
It's a tough to balance that and building confidence and making people feel smarter and more capable and more comfortable in
Right.
magic, and being like, if you don't play this card you are incorrect, or if you play this card with this card that is incorrect.
Yeah. Like,
Like I want to give people the context to make educated choices for themselves.
Right.
And it's a really, really tough thing to balance
Yeah.
in a format that's truly just about creative expression. Like I
Right.
can teach you about mana curves, I can teach you about ramp and like what each color does, but at the end of the day, if you want to build a mono black like landfall deck, then go nuts.
God bless, dude.
You figure it out.
Nicholas is right there.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, like that's why I like talking to Wheeler, for instance, because whenever I talk to him, he's always coming up with like, yeah, so this was my mono blue landfall, like, or mono green mill deck, and I'm like, what? Mono green
Mhm.
mill titania? What does that even mean? And because there's 30,000 cards in Commander, there's
Yeah.
infinite ways to combine them to do ridiculous things.
And
Like
I
it,
think I honestly I think that like people talk about how they grow past the command zone or they grow past game nights. And I think that's a really like they're like, "Oh, I don't really need that anymore." And I
yeah, that's
think
great.
that's when like the command zone has given them the tools
Yeah,
to be able to build these decks that are like, I don't need you to tell me how to build a deck anymore. I'm capable of building mono green mill. And Wheeler is capable of all
Wheeler's like on a
8
different level.
land, unbelievable creativity.
His
And
decks are a pile of garbage, is what they are.
you have to be like you have to be so good at commander and at build deck building, and you have such a incredible card knowledge to break the rules the way that Wheeler does.
Yeah, the dude
Um,
makes formats for fun. Okay, like, but the thing is, I think what you just said though is a very, very salient point, because I can remember the exact day that I was like, oh, you know what? I don't need to listen to this episode of Command. Like, I was a religious listener of Command Zone for
mhm,
like 4, 5, 6 years, and I got to a point I'm like, oh, I don't need to hear this episode because I already know what they're going to talk about because
mhm,
I've learned the lesson. I've absorbed the. Like earlier, you said Command Zone is like journalism, and in the way you do
mhm,
investigative reporting. I think of it more I think of it less as journalism and more of like, I don't know if there's an English concept for this word, but of like a guru teaching you, giving you, imparting the knowledge,
mm,
teaching you the scripture, showing you the way, and then eventually you find enlightenment and you move past needing that teacher.
mhm,
Like it's like command. That's why I'm always very careful of like, or why I'm always very cautious whenever you guys say something,
mm,
because so many people will take that as the teaching, the word, right? It's
mhm.
like, and I'm like, okay, well, no, they're not trying to give you the final stamp on this is the truth. They're trying to give you the tools in order to find the truth for yourself. But
Yeah,
some
I
people just
think
take a minute to get there.
I think our card evaluation episodes, like especially when we do in the 99 episodes, that's usually Josh and I, where we talk about cards that could go in your deck. And those episodes I think are as much about like showing you the cool new cards that are like available to put in commander decks, but also to teach you how to look at a card, find what it's good with, find how to look at it in comparison to other cards. So you can have the tools to be able to make those decisions for yourself. Because, like, we're not going to be able to evaluate every single card in the context of your mono green mill deck. Like, it might be great there, it might be so good there. We have to give you the average context for that
Well,
card.
I mean, look, I post a card every day, a random Scryfall random, or I'll throw a random card
Mhm.
on the Twitter or something, and someone's like, "This is," and I'm like, "Man, this is just by and large not a great card." And someone's like, "How dare you? This is the fundamental key card in my Zixrix deck," and I'm like, "Okay, there's always one."
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
always one somewhere. There's enough commanders and enough weird people who will say, like, you know what? God bless you. I'm glad you found the card you need, but for the
Mhm.
average person, if they put this in their deck, it's not going to do what they want. And
Yeah. Oh God, I get questions all the time on my deck lists where people are like, "Why do you run this card over this card when
because
this
I
card is
like it.
clearly better?" And most of the time, it's like, "Well, I don't want to play that one, or I don't have that one,
Or
or
it was in arm's reach.
literally, yeah, this one has a picture of an octopus on it."
I
And
mean,
that's the answer. And the thing about commander card evaluation is like, yeah, that's part of it. Is I get
right.
to decide if it has a tentacle on it, then it's going in Octavia.
I mean, that's the truth. A lot of people are just like, why would you put this grunky card from whatever instead of this strictly better? I'm like, because I smile when I draw it.
I like it. Yeah.
Because
I
it
like
makes me
saying
happy. What do
bamboozle.
you like? It's cute. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like, I don't. It's a commander game. What am I going to win? Nothing. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
It's tough though, because we have episodes that are like these are the best cards in Thunder Junction for you to put in
Yeah.
your decks, and that's the context that we give them when we try and talk about them in terms of power level.
Well, yeah. I
So,
mean, like Bristly Bill is always going to just be insanely powerful. It doesn't
and
matter.
it's like one of those things where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna tell you this card is powerful. It's more powerful than this. But if you like, but all of this is a grain of salt. If you like this card, put it in your deck. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't.
Right.
And
Like,
I'm going to tell you to take out your repeatable your grave packs and your dictative Ereboses because I don't want to play against them, and I don't think they make for fun, entertaining games.
thank
But if
you.
they make you have a good time and your friend group thinks they're fun,
Whatever.
I don't know better than you. Go nuts.
Although Grave Pact is a little bit of a little bit. There's some cards where I'm like, okay, like Winter Orb or something. I'm like, look, I get it. Some people like the puzzle.
Yeah.
Rule, go knock yourself out.
Mhm.
Most people don't, and please be aware of that. That's all I'm saying.
You just have to be aware that it's a puzzle.
Yeah, it's
And that
just
it's not for everybody. And I think that's something that we try and talk about is like we give caveats all the time. That's just like if we say that like this card is not appropriate for all settings, it doesn't mean it's not appropriate for your setting. That's a
right.
conversation you have to have. We're not saying this card is bad and makes you bad.
Yeah.
It's like we're providing context
Sometimes I like
as
to
much as
throw
possible.
deck lists on Twitter and say like, "Hey folks, give me your thoughts. I'm trying to upgrade this. Help me find like 6 cuts or whatever."
Mm.
And inevitably the 6 cuts will be like my pet cards that are never moving, and I'm like,
Not those
"Okay,
though. That's
that's
the
not
thing.
going to happen, but it's a nice thought.
I
Appreciate it."
used to do that too. I used to put my deck list online and ask for like if anybody had input. And I never liked the input.
No, now
I never liked it, and I don't do it anymore.
there's like 4 people I will ask now, and I'm like, "EK, tell me what I should put in here." Right? Like, like maybe we don't need to have the masses sitting there saying like, "Hey, you know what? You should replace that Darksteel ingot you've had for 20 years with this awesome, fat, much better mono rock." I'm like, yeah, but no.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna play this one. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, and then you're wasting your time explaining why you're keeping this
Yeah.
card, and you're like, this doesn't matter to you. You're
No.
never gonna play this deck. I'm playing this deck.
Right, exactly that. Um
And then people build my decks and they're like, tell me more about why you have Psionic Blast in your deck. It's an interesting choice. I was like, oh, I have a cool one. And I think it's funny. You shouldn't put that in your deck. You should change that actually.
Yeah, it's like, why is this in your deck? Well, I have a beta that I got when I was 8. And
Exactly.
so,
I have a beta Psionic Blast is the
yeah,
reason.
right?
And
Like,
you should not buy a beta Psionic
no.
Blast. But
No. Look, Psyblast was awesome when I was 12 years old, okay? It was
yeah.
the coolest. It was the bee's knees, and I died to it many, many times.
Mhm.
But boy, is that card not something I recommend for the average person.
Yeah.
But like, so when you got there, did you knew from the beginning that Josh basically wanted to kind of like move more backstage and less beyond the podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, Josh is always looking to be able to expand our capability and have us do bigger projects. And when he needed somebody to keep the wheels turning in the podcast, and I'm on the hamster wheel,
You know what?
and I'm a happy hamster.
You're right. It's awesome. Like, look, dude, you and I both love talking about Commander. So if you got the opportunity to just get to talk about Commander all the time, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I'm like, I still play Commander all the time outside of work, and we play Commander at lunch.
Yeah, right.
I play Arena when I get home. I play
We have
people are
problems.
like, what? Yeah, they're like, what do you do outside of Magic? I'm like, literally nothing. And I know that's crazy. I understand that's crazy.
Luckily,
That's where I'm at right now.
yeah, luckily my other hobby is reading books, so I can get away with
Mm,
not having Magic all the time. But
that's good.
because if I didn't, I would go crazy.
No, that's fair. This sounds bananas. I started playing Animal Crossing recently.
Mm,
I mean, like in the last 2 weeks, because I was like, I just need something
that's not this.
that
To just
isn't this. And I want it to be low pressure,
Yeah,
and I
like,
want it to be
look, I got these 30 sticks. I need to get to
something else.
Tom Nook. That's all that's got to happen.
Yep.
Like my
I
banana tree
wanted
just fruited.
I wanted something I couldn't possibly be bad at. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted.
Oh
And
God, I
now
miss
I'm
Animal
playing Animal
Crossing.
Crossing just 5 years after
Yeah,
everybody
you
was
know what?
playing
I
Animal
I
Crossing.
will reinstall it and we can trade
Come hang
items
out
in
with
Animal
me.
Crossing.
Yeah, I've been playing for 2 weeks, so I don't have much going on, but I'm doing my best.
You know what? That game definitely kept me alive during pandemic. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Me and my kids sat and played a lot of Animal Crossing together.
that's what
Um,
everybody says. They were like,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, I was playing that in 2020," and you're like, "Yeah, well,
yeah, it's just cute. Well, I'm here now. What do you want?
yep. Are you still there? Well, then you're useless to me."
So, tell me about game nights live
Mm.
because that is the wildest.
It's
I
the coolest
remember,
part of my job. And
I,
the thing is, the Game Nights Live wasn't a part of the job when we like talked about it. Like
mm,
I was like, "Oh, you're gonna run the podcast and it's gonna be this from day to day and we'll find other things to kind of be a part of your job." And then suddenly there was this incredible live show at all of the MagicCons around the world. And it's incredible. It's so much fun.
I remember when I met Frank Karsten, the
Mm,
genius, like, master statistician of magic. And we were in Philadelphia at the first MagicCon and I was
mm.
talking to him and we were talking about the show and he had just come back from watching Game Nights Live or whatever. And I'm like, man, it's way different from the Pro Tour, isn't it? And he's like, people aren't chanting my name at the Pro Tour.
I mean,
It is so insane. It's standing
it's
room only. It is the most,
wild.
like, it's so amazing. It fills me with such happiness vicariously to see my friends succeeding like this. Or, well, first to be able to call these people my friends, let
Mhm,
alone, and then I'm like, holy crap, look at this. We started getting shoved out the back of GPLA and sitting in the food court to play.
mhm.
And now, literally, there are 500, 600 people standing room only watching you guys play Commander.
Yeah,
What
I
the
mean,
hell?
it was such a sweet opportunity to be a performer, to get this job, and then to be called into a meeting where we sit down and talk about what makes Commander fun to watch.
That is a very difficult thing to do.
It's such an interesting challenge to be like, what makes this card game fun for people outside of this? And it's
Yeah.
such a different mindset, right? Because
Yes.
Josh is an editor, so he knows how to make the game exciting for game nights. But it was like for the edited game nights, of
Live.
course. But live was like, okay, so what do we take about game nights that people love, and how do we transition that to a live show? And it's
It's insanely difficult.
Jake and Jamie and Josh have done an insanely good job of just making a card game that four people are playing feel like the event
Right?
of the year, you know? And
It's
we took a lot of notes from pro wrestling, I'll tell you that.
yeah, dude, the intros and the walking in with all of the dancers and the whole thing. It's like, yeah, it feels like a gladiatorial event. It's like the sparklers and the whole nonsense. But
I literally wept when Prof made his entrance in Chicago.
wasn't it the coolest?
I
God, I was so happy for him. He
like
is he had wanted to go to MagicCon so badly, and it just for political reasons, it just did
Mhm.
not work out. And so being able to see him there and just get that adulation, I was like, yeah, let's go.
And we planned we had meetings about like what deck was he gonna play, what was he gonna look like, what's Prof's guild, what does his walk up look like, how do we make him
Ugh,
look and feel like the rock star he is in this community.
right?
And to have him come out and just the sound that everybody made
The
was,
wall of sound.
oh my god, I was overwhelmed.
It was
And that's the thing is like I know
or like
Prof
when
better
Sheldon came
now,
out,
but like, oh my god.
in the tux and did the thing, and it was just like, yeah, let's go.
It's truly the best part about a really incredible job. I have
right?
the best job. That's the best part.
It's I I bleed with jealousy, let me tell you. But also, like, who am I going to replace on that stage? They're all amazing people. I would never fit up there. That's so cool. I'm just
I
so
mean,
excited to be part of this. Like, just like it rules. Um, so, but that does lead me to an interesting question that you jostled in my head while talking about this, which is there is a huge difference between making decks for ourselves for fun time
mhm,
and making decks for content and for the purposes of showing fun gameplay on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever.
mhm,
And I think one of the if I was going to have a criticism of game nights and of just this space is
mhm.
that a lot of the times we're playing decks that are made for content that are with cards that are specifically selected to be flashy and cool and look good on camera,
Yeah.
and then people are watching them at home and they're not realizing that the decks we're playing for show are not necessarily going to translate to their home games in a way that's uh good for their home game. Because like if I'm sitting with Jim on like spike feeders and I slam in and destroy him on turn 3 and it's just explosive and I did this crazy stuff, it's gonna look really great on camera. If you do
Mhm.
that at home with your buddies, it's going to be the last game you play with them. You know?
It's an interesting thing. I mean, we talked about this recently about how, like, what we learned about building entertaining decks
Mm,
can be transitioned to people who are building decks for, to play at their house. And I do think that a lot of the things that make decks exciting to watch are what make decks exciting to play against. Um, and that's cool. Like, you want a deck that does something your opponents are excited to see.
right.
And I think when you're building a deck to entertain and delight and excite and confound, um, that makes for a really great game environment in your local circle.
Mm,
Um, where as opposed to like when you're building a deck to win as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible.
right.
Because if you make infinite mana with a basalt monolith and kill me with a walking ballista, nobody's going to be like, wow,
Never seen that one before.
wowee, um, you did it. It's
Yeah.
just not entertaining in that same way. It may be fun to play because there's like a competitive edge to it, and to be like, ah, you pulled it off through this and that, and like that can be an exciting part about it. But if you build a deck that's trying to do something that's exciting to watch, that's very cool. We actually talked about it recently, where I think about a deck that I build for game nights is a
Hmm,
deck I'm trying to play, of course, but it's also a deck I'm kind of trying to perform.
right.
Like, you want to make your deck look like the coolest one at the table.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of why game nights is so cool is you're trying to play up these little things that could be downplayed and just been like, and I make 3 treasure tokens, I make this,
Right.
this, this, it does 3 damage to you. But it also,
But you
like,
want to do it big.
if you perform it, if you're like, and then my commander makes 3 treasures and it does 6 damage to everybody, like the rock comes in and you narrate it or whatever.
Exactly.
It highlights what's exciting about commander. It makes the game more exciting to watch. And I think honestly, people should do that with their local groups: is perform your deck,
Oh
like
yeah.
design it to be exciting. And
I believe that every deck is a story and that
mhm,
you should be doing your best to tell that story in a way that entertains the people at your table.
yeah.
And like I mean, but I'm also a DM, like so this is like just my innate blood of wanting to be like, and now this dungeon happens. Let's go.
The
I
funny
mean,
thing is, like, I'm also a highly technical Magic player. I really, really want to play
you're so
well.
much better than I am.
Like, whether I'm a good player or not, like, I'm trying to play really smart. So what I do is like try and build decks that are exciting and then play them optimally. Because I don't want a deck that I have to play suboptimally in order to be fun to play against.
Yes, that's
You know what
true.
I mean? Because I get joy from playing as optimally as I
I
can.
I think it was Watsy's Lee Sharp once told me something that stuck with me and changed the way I built decks, basically, which is like build like a Timmy, play
Mm.
like a Spike. Which
Yeah.
is if you build your limitations into your deck to begin with,
Hmm.
then you can play as optimally and hardcore as you want, and you will still have a ceiling of like your power level or your fun level or whatever it is will be balanced by the fact that you just didn't put these other mean cards or cards that are outside of the scope that you're trying to get in your deck,
Hmm.
and then it doesn't matter. You can play as like you can have the full technical experience and be playing a doofy deck,
Yeah. I
and it's just
mean,
like it stuck with me.
it's great. I think that's uh I think people would get more joy out of Commander that way than I like. You talk to a lot of people where they're like, "Well, you need some kind of an infinite combo in your deck. Just a game's got to end," and you're like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't want an infinite combo in my hand that I can cast and am not going to cast because we're having a good time."
right.
So I just don't want that. That doesn't make me feel good.
For me, my favorite infinite combos are the ones where I'm sitting there looking at cards that are on the board, and I'm just like, oh crap. I didn't even think about these two cards together when I put them into my deck because they were part of different combo packages in my
Right.
head. And I never expected that they would be on the table together. And whoopsie doodle, let's go. And then it's just fun. And
See,
because
I
everybody
love
knows,
it.
yeah,
Like I have Feldergriff is an infinite combo deck, and it's an incredibly convoluted infinite
it's a
combo
messy combo deck.
where you're like, I'm gonna use Intruder Alarm, but I'm using it to give you infinite hippos.
Finally, we have broken intruder alarm.
And I know I'm using this incredibly dumb card to give you infinite hippos to somehow punish you for that. Um, and it's fun to me to figure out how to do that in the moment
You
to
make
assemble
such
this.
fun decks. I love your decks. They're
That
so
was like
goofy.
Feldergriff's a masterpiece. It's one of those things where it just like it came together over the course of so many years, and now every time I play it, I'm like, this thing's awesome. It feels
I
like it's
may.
outside my hands at this point. Like she built herself.
I remember cracking that card as a kid and being like, I don't understand why this exists. And
Yep.
now I'm like, this is the greatest card of all time.
It's it's why getting to see Sheldon play it was like one of my favorite Commander memories ever.
Dude,
Is like I just gave him the list and I was like, "Do you want me to walk you through?" He's like, "Nope."
he knows how to Feldergriff.
He's got it. He's got it. He's like, "I'll figure it out." And he absolutely did. He
Man.
picked up all these weird cards. He knew exactly what they were doing in there.
Yeah,
Real
because
pro.
that Feldergriff deck feels like it's of a different era. It
Yeah.
feels like classic EDH, not even Commander.
Yeah. When was the last time you died to a dingus staff?
Well, I play Chandelar, so I died to a lot of dingus eggs.
Sure, sure.
God, dingus! I love grody old cards. What do you want? This is
Mm.
just, um, God, man. Sheldon knew how to pick him. Is all I'm saying. He knew what he was doing when he grabbed us all for this monster of a thing we run.
He's a smart man.
Yeah. So, what do you think about Commander in 2024? Where are we as a format? How is it? Like Commander has grown leaps and bounds. It
Yeah.
is insanely large. It is now, in my opinion, not one format, but like an umbrella of multiple formats that are trying to live together and kind of uneasy harmony. And it's just like, where do you think we are
It's
from the bully
interesting.
pulpit of Command Zone?
I think it's really easy to look at Commander from where we sit as like Twitter. Like we have a bird's eye view of the format, right? And from the sky, it's a mess. Like when it's there's so many different power levels and everybody's doing different things and everybody wants different things out of the format. But I think when you zoom in, it's great and it's exactly how it's always been. Like my sister's new to Commander. She and her boyfriend just learned how to play Magic. They like I built them their first decks. I built her Kadira and I built him Godzilla. And they have like they only have three people they play with, so they play like 1v1v1 all the time. And they just got to the point where they're like, we're gonna build our own decks, but can you help a little bit? And And they're picking out, like, my sister sent me Visara the Dreadful.
Visara the Dreadful.
Yeah, she was like, I want to build this. I like her vibe. That's what she said. And I was like, this is not a very good card. And she was like, I like her vibe. And
You
so
know what? Bless.
she's building all old border Basara the Dreadful. And I didn't teach her that.
That is the
Like,
my heart is warmed because that card
it's
is indeed dreadful.
it's not great. It's not a great card.
No.
Yeah. And but the thing is, like, they're discovering new weird cards. They
God, I
called
love
me
that.
the other day upset about Rooftop Storm. They were like, have you seen this?
This is my
This is
favorite
the
card.
stupidest thing. Why do I get to he gets to cast all the free zombies? And you're
Yes.
like, yeah, he does.
But it costs 6. So it's like,
but they don't know that, you know? So
yeah, I know.
but like, it's one of these things where I get a window into what Commander was like.
Isn't
When we
it the
started
best feeling?
Commander. Like, they're doing great and they're discovering Commander, and like, you talk to people about their play groups and they're like, my buddy has this and we're working to get it. Like, all the tiny microcosms are perfect and they're exactly where they're supposed to be, and they're growing and changing and they're building what they want and they're playing with people that they want to play with.
Did you see
and then
my
you go to a
deck?
game store and,
oh yeah,
dear God, it's tough out there.
That is, I think, the challenge that we face as a format is like in the groups at home, everybody's got it figured out and everybody's having a great time. When we've got people meeting up together in a store,
here's my pitch. This is what I think. I think Commander isn't at its best in a game store. I think LGSs should be used like speed dating. I think you should go to your game store and bring your decks and find people that you enjoy playing with and ask them their name and get their number and try and get a pod together of people who play like you. And then you have a play group. Like, I think you should use a game store as a place to meet Magic players. And then you can go play Commander on your own time. You can, like, you don't have to fight in the weeds every week. You just have to be a little brave and try to make somebody your friend. Because that's how you get to the place where Commander is at its best, which is at somebody's kitchen table over drinks, petting their dog. Like, I think solving the issue of untrusted play is not a thing we're going to get because everybody wants something different out of this format. So you just have to find people who want the same things and try and play with them as much as possible.
Amen to that. Amen to that. This is why I like you. Your philosophy is so you say everything I do with like far more concisely and better.
I think about it all the time.
Right? I'm going to end with this one because I think that's a really great place to kind of call this. But I also just recently built a Kadira deck and I want to share my secret tech with you.
Yeah, hit me.
So there's this card from Mirrodin Block called Nemesis Mask. It's an equipment that's basically a lure. Like, you know, it attacks, everything has to block this thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could build a Kadira deck that's just standard token doublers and all the crazy time you expect with Kadira. But I was like, wouldn't it be more fun if I had a different gimmick? And so my Kadira deck is a Voltron deck. Sure. Her whole shtick is I'm going to wear all the equipment in the world and run in there and make infinite like tokens. And I've got a bunch of creatures like cards that say like all your tokens get exalted or whatever. So like she runs in there and she's like just enormous.
Huge.
But,
yeah. Love that.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, but I can just block. And I'm like, but if I put Nemesis Mask on one of her bunnies and he runs in there, everybody's like, has to go and attack the scary bunny while she just walks in and slams you in the face. And it fills me with such joy to just be like, all of those big scary dragons on your side are terrified of this wee little bunny, while the big owners just walk in and just go, Papa. And then I make 250 tokens, and it's great.
Kadira is so cracked.
That card is not okay.
It's so fun. Anytime a card says double, you're like, no.
Yeah, no, dude. I was looking at that, and I'm like, the first time I played it, and I made like 550 tokens one turn, and I was like, this is far stronger than I thought it would be.
Oh, yeah.
I thought this was going to be some doofy gimp deck. And no, This is actually just insane.
Yeah, I put Fire Shrieker in Sydney's
Oh
deck,
my god.
and I was like, it's a simple card. Equipment are easy to explain, and the first time that she hit with it, she was like, okay, I hit. She's like, wait,
Yeah.
does that
Yeah.
happen twice? It does
It
happen
sure
twice.
does.
She was like, what?
And
And
they see all
it's
the ones that came in the first time.
yeah, it's man, I being able to
I love
teach
Commander.
people and build decks for new players and answer questions as they have them has been so fun and such like a fresh place to be in
There
Commander.
is
It's
no
cool.
better moment than seeing somebody's eyes light up when they look at it and they put the combo together in their head or the synergy or whatever, and they're just like, "Oh no way!" And you're like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, here it comes."
that's what it does. It's
That's what it's
exactly
all
what it
about, man. I
does.
love this so much. God, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm
My
so
pleasure.
glad.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, congratulations. You've been doing
Thank you.
amazing. I love listening to you on the show.
That
And
means a lot.
yeah, and I'm so happy that millions of other people get to experience the Rachel Weeks philosophy the way that we do. Um, but yeah, if folks wanted to, I mean, despite the fact that we just talked about an hour about your employer, if folks want to find you, where could they go?
Well, you can go find the podcast. It's the Command Zone. That's on YouTube
Yeah, you might be
or
familiar.
or a podcast. I'm on various game nights. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Sorry, X and Instagram at Wachel Reeks is my Twitter handle. And I play D&D every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific with a group of comedians. That show's called Better Than Heroes. We play Spelljammer, and it's silly.
I
We're
love
level
Spelljammer.
16 now, so stuff is
Oh no.
big and going down.
Oh god, there's a lot of illithids coming your way.
We got through the illithids. We've got to. There's bigger problems right now. Believe it or
Good
not.
times. Awesome. And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gear Report Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold or at YouTube every Tuesday. Thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic, where me and Wheeler talk about every single set in the history of Magic for like 3 hours. It's a lot. It's a lot. And you can also hear me on the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast because I like to talk, and my friend John and I talk about Dragonlance books. And with that, my friends, remember, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.